Hello and welcome. Let's begin the news with no less than 4 dead in U.S. as tornadoes hit Oklahoma. Dubai ruler reveals plan for largest airport terminal. U.S. says Putin not likely behind Navalny's February death. Biden battles Trump's first-term nostalgia. And Russia gaining in eastern Ukraine concerns over military reports. Stay with me for this and more stories. At least 4 people were killed and dozens more wounded after multiple tornadoes wreaked havoc in the central states of Oklahoma in the several states. The tornadoes caused broad damage in the town of Sulphur, home to around 5,000 people, flattened buildings, threw vehicles into the air and ripped the roofs from houses. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt said, "You just can't believe the destruction," during a visit to the hard-hit town on Sunday afternoon. "It seems like every business downtown has been destroyed." A 4-month-old baby was among the dead, Hughes County Emergency Management Director Mike Dockery said, according to reports. Stitt said closely 30 people were wounded, including some who were in a bar when the tornado hit. Hospitals across the state reported around 100 injuries, including people apparently caught or struck by debris, and over 20,000 residents were still without electricity on Sunday evening. Stitt issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency in 12 counties due to the extreme weather. While in a call with the Oklahoma governor, President Joe Biden offered the federal government's full support with recovery efforts, the White House said. In a statement, the National Weather Service, NWS, reported that 38 possible tornadoes hit the area and that the worst of the storms rolled through central Oklahoma on Saturday into early Sunday morning, spreading into northwest Texas, western Missouri, and Kansas. The Emirates ruler has said Dubai has begun work on a $35 billion airport terminal that is set to have the world's largest capacity upon completion. On Sunday, Dubai's Prime Minister and Vice President Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum said that the new terminal will be 5 times the size of the current Dubai International Airport and handle up to 260 million passengers annually. All operations at Dubai International Airport will be transferred to the newer Al Maktoum International Airport over the coming years, Sheikh Mohammed said. Al Maktoum International Airport, which opened in 2010, once completed, will be the new home of flagship carrier Emirates and feature 5 parallel runways and 400 aircraft gates. Paul Griffiths, the CEO of Dubai Airport, said the development will solidify Dubai's position as a leading aviation hub. The growth of Dubai has always been hand in hand with the growth of its aviation infrastructure, and today we see another bold step on that journey, Griffiths said in a statement. Dubai International Airport has been the world's busiest airport for international travel for 10 consecutive years, putting the facility's capacity on the string. Closely 87 million passengers used the transit hub last year, topping pre-pandemic levels. Dubai announced a record 17.15 million international overnight visitors in 2023, up closely 20% from the earlier year. On Russia-Ukraine war, according to reports, intelligence officials in the United States have determined that Russian President Vladimir Putin probably did not plan for jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny to be killed in February at an Arctic prison camp. According to reports citing people familiar with the matter that it did not name, reported that U.S. intelligence agencies did not dispute Putin's culpability in Navalny's death, but had decided that the Russian president probably did not order Navalny's death at the time it took place. The finding was broadly accepted within the intelligence community and shared by several agencies, including the Central Intelligence Agency, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the State Department's Intelligence Unit. Reports cited its sources as saying on Saturday. Reports citing a U.S. official said separately that the intelligence community had discovered no smoking gun, that Putin was aware of the timing of Navalny's death or directly ordered it. That report also emphasized that Washington believed Putin was ultimately responsible for the death of Navalny, who endured brutal conditions in jail and was poisoned with a nerve agent in 2020 in an incident that almost killed him. Navalny, 47, was Russia's best-known opposition politician and Putin's fiercest critic. At the time of his death on February 16th, he was serving a 19-year sentence on charges of extremism that he rejected as politically motivated. He had been behind bars since January 2021 after returning to Russia from Germany, where he had been recovering from the Novichok poisoning. Navalny's allies, branded extremist by the authorities, accused Putin of having him murdered and have said they will provide proof to back their allegations. Russian officials have said only that Navalny died of natural causes and have denied involvement both in the earlier poisoning and his death. On 2024 U.S. election, President Joe Biden is casting the 2024 election partly as a referendum on Donald Trump, but it's a tougher card to play now that he's in office and some voters have warming memories of the ex-president's chaotic term. The presumptive GOP nominee is showing progress in assembling the Republican Party around him as his criminal trial underway in New York triggers his claims he's a victim of political persecution. Even former Attorney General William Barr, who once said Trump shouldn't be near the Oval Office, said he'd backed him. And the former president met with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, his ex-GOP primary rival, for several hours on Sunday. At the same time, Biden is still experiencing problems with key sectors of his own coalition, including younger voters, a new poll indicates. Just over 6 months before the poll, a volatile political climate is throwing up several tests for two flawed candidates, and it is hard to pinpoint which issues will be decisive in November. They span voter disenchantment with the economy to abortion rights, as well as criticism of Biden's leadership on key issues at home and abroad at a time of stubbornly high inflation and growing protests on college campuses over Israel's war in Gaza. There is also the unprecedented spectacle of the potential next president facing numerous criminal indictments, including a jury verdict within weeks in his Manhattan hush money case as he tries to make a historic comeback after his efforts to overturn the 2020 election to stay in power. And the effect on the race of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an independent candidate, remains unclear, although Trump is showing growing signs of fear over his run. The poll released on Sunday suggests Biden is facing severe pressure to do more to remind voters of the chaos of Trump's single term, which ended amidst his unreliable leadership in a once-in-a-century pandemic, but that now appears to some voters to have largely been a time of economic stability. Over half, 55% of all Americans say they see Trump's presidency as a success, while 44% see it as a failure. That contrasts with a survey taken just before Trump left office and days after the January 6, 2021 attack in the U.S. Capitol, when 55% of voters considered his presidency a failure. Regarding Biden's presidency so far, 61% says it's a failure, while 39% see it as successful. The findings underscore the reverse dynamic that the president must deal with as he seeks a second term. 4 years ago, he was able to rate Trump's time in office from his position as a challenger. Biden promised the country will overcome the season of darkness and choose hope over fear, facts over fiction, fairness over privilege. Now, however, Trump is able to exploit Biden's struggles in office as he seeks to make the election a classic referendum on the incumbent despite his own liabilities. The ex-president paints a picture of a failing nation drifting in a world spinning into disorder almost every day during breaks from his trial in Manhattan. Vladimir Putin's forces have made more gains in at least 3 locations along the eastern front in Ukraine, including for the first time in many months in advance in the northern Kharkiv region, emphasizing again Kyiv's need for ammunition and weapons from the United States and other allies. Russia's strategic advances are now daily and reflect the new tempo on the battlefield since the fall of the industrial town of Advivka in February. The gains are generally modest, from a few hundred meters of territory to perhaps a kilometer at most, but they are usually taking place in several locations at once. Ukraine's losses, meanwhile, are being accompanied by criticism from influential military bloggers and analysts of the armed forces' official battlefield updates. One of Russia's major efforts is in the Donetsk region, Ukraine's deep state monitoring group, which updates daily changes in frontline positions, shows Russian forces pushing forward in 8 different locations along 20 to 25 kilometers of front line in one 24-hour period. Military bloggers on both sides have reported that Russian forces have crossed a watercourse and taken control of the settlements of Semenivka and Berychi, which Ukrainian Army Chief Alexander Syrsky confirmed on Sunday. Russia had deployed up to 4 brigades in offensive operations in the area, Syrsky said. A few kilometers to the north, Solovyovo is now also reported to be in Russian hands, and the tiny settlement of Karamik at least partly so as well. Russian forces are also making headway in the industrial town of Krasnohorivka, slightly further south, entering from the south and the east. Ferocious fighting has been reported around the town's large brick factory. One Russian military blogger wrote of the battle's importance. The liberation of the refractory plant will actually mean the fall of the Krasnohorivka fortification, as the northern outskirts of the settlement are private buildings which will be too difficult to defend if the plant is lost. Elsewhere, about 180 kilometers, 112 miles to the north, Russia's forces have also achieved their first successes in almost 3 months along that part of the front line that cut into Kharkiv region. A Ukrainian army spokesperson described Russian forces there as having become significantly more active over the past day, while Deep State assessed a Russian advance of between 1 and 2 kilometers into the village of Kislivka. Overall, the front lines in this region has been among the most stable since Ukraine recaptured a large swath of territory in Kharkiv region in late summer of 2022. More stories in Israel and Gaza conflicts. Blinken to visit Israel, key Middle East amid stalled talks. This week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will travel to Israel, Jordan and Saudi Arabia to meet with regional partners as talks between Israel and Hamas remain deadlocked, the State Department announced over the weekend. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in a statement on Saturday, the Secretary will discuss ongoing efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza that secures the release of hostages and how it is Hamas that is standing between the Palestinian people and a ceasefire, while announcing Blinken's plans to visit Saudi Arabia. The Secretary will also emphasize the importance of preventing the conflict from spreading and discuss ongoing efforts to achieve lasting peace and security in the region, including through a pathway to an independent Palestinian state with security guarantees for Israel. In spite months of discussions mediated by Qatar and Egypt, Hamas and Israel have failed to reach an agreement on a deal intended at releasing hostages and implementing a ceasefire in Gaza. On Sunday, the State Department announced that the top American diplomat will also travel to Israel and Jordan. He will discuss the recent increase in humanitarian assistance being delivered to Gaza and underscore the importance of ensuring that increases sustain, Miller said in an updated trip announcement. A senior State Department official said traveling with Blinken on Sunday that he will meet with Saudi officials and foreign ministers from the region regarding the future of Gaza. When he heads to Jordan and Israel, Blinken's aim will be on humanitarian assistance, the official said. President Joe Biden's top diplomats will meet with 8 organizations and Jordanian government officials to get an update, which he will take to Israeli officials. Blinken's trip, set for Monday through Wednesday, comes after he met with Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman last month in Jeddah to discuss efforts to release the hostages held by Hamas. While in Riyadh, Blinken will also hold bilateral meetings regarding Saudi Arabia normalizing ties with Israel, according to the State Department official. In African scenes, many feared death in Kenya after boat capsized. No less than 35 people have been killed and dozens of others are missing after a dam burst in southern Kenya, sweeping away homes and vehicles as the country fights with weeks of heavy rains and devastating flash floods. Rescue teams are digging through the mud and debris trying to find survivors close to Mai Mahiu in Kenya's Nakuru County. Governor Susan Kikaki said, according to a report, cautioning that the death toll could rise significantly. The incident comes as flooding has inundated large swaths of Kenya, killing at least 103 people and forcing thousands of residents from their homes since March, government spokesperson Isaac Magawa Maura said on Monday. In Mai Mahahu, Kihika said a severe situation was unfolding as flood waters swept away people and homes. Access to Mai Mahiu, 20 miles north of the capital Nairobi, had been hard as part of the road had been cut off from recent heavy rains. Kihika said teams are clearing debris as they try to reach survivors and pull out bodies. She added, on Monday, the Kenyan Red Cross Society said many people were taken to a health facility in Mai Mahiu due to the flash floods affecting Kamuchuri village. Kenya has registered heavy rain since mid-March, but downpours have intensified over the past week, leading to mass flooding. IFRC Secretary General and CEO Jagan Campaign said Kenya is facing a worsening flood crisis due to the combined effects of El Nino and the ongoing March-May 2024 long rains, referring to the climate patterns that originate in the Pacific Ocean along the equator and impact weather all over the world. Since November 2023, El Nino triggered devastating floods and river overflows, causing over 100 deaths and widespread damage. Some 131,450 people have been affected as floods swept through almost half of Kenya. Right now, we go on a short break, and when we come back, I'll bring you more stories, particularly from Nigeria. Do stay with us. You're welcome back. Now, zoom on Nigeria. We begin with fuel queues worsening across the country. Commuters groan. In spite claims by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) that the logistics issues triggering fuel scarcity had been tackled, Nigerians in Lagos and other parts of the country were still battling to get premium motor spirit (PMS) as several filling stations remain under lock and key throughout the weekend. According to report, the situation might deteriorate in Lagos and other parts of the southwest like Ogun, Oyo, Osun, and others because there was a directive by the NNPCL that fuel trucks must first service the Federal Capital Territory before any other place. As a result, the majority of trucks leaving the depots in Lagos since Friday were heading for Abuja. Officials of the NNPCL and marketers said there was a directive that depots should service Abuja filling stations before any part of the nation. They worried that queues might remain for the next 3 days in the southwest. According to the oil sector sources, hundreds of trucks loaded on Saturday were sent to Abuja based on the NNPCL directive. The officials, who spoke on condition of anonymity, also revealed that the product was being rationed by the NNPCL, which now allocates 5,000 metric tons of fuel instead of 10,000 metric tons to depot. The National Vice President of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Hamed Fashula, while speaking, expressed hope that the queues in Lagos and Ogun will ease off between Monday and Wednesday, relying on the words of the NNPCL. However, he stated that the queues in Abuja might tarry a bit due to the distance to Lagos. Still on fuel scarcity, Tinubu says ending petrol subsidy averted Nigeria's bankruptcy. On Sunday, President Bola Tinubu said Nigeria would have gone bankrupt if his administration had not stopped fuel subsidy payments. He said, though the policy came with economic discomfort, as it was in the best interest of Nigerians. Tinubu spoke at the Special War Economic Forum in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Upon assuming office last May, he implemented the stoppage of subsidies on petrol as prescribed by the immediate past administration of Muhammadu Buhari. He assured the measure will save the government money for infrastructural expansion. This move, however, stoked collateral instability in the value of the naira and heaped hardship on Nigerians as food prices rise. At the WEF, Tinubu argued that removing the petrol subsidy was a necessary action for my country not to go bankrupt and to reset the economy towards growth. Acknowledging the difficulties posed by the decision, the Nigerian leader told attendees that his government implemented parallel arrangements to reduce the effect on vulnerable citizens. He also described the unification of the naira exchange rate as necessary to remove the artificial element of value in our currency. The step, he argued, enabled the local currency to find its level, compete with the rest of the world's currencies, and remove arbitrage, corruption, and opaqueness. Tinubu also stressed the need for stability and economic prosperity in West Africa, saying we need to trade with one another to not fight each other. And finally, on the news, Aiyedatiwa's campaign coordinator killed. Gunmen have killed Abi Alaba, a leading member of the Lucky Aiyedatiwa campaign organization. He was one of the coordinators of the Aiyedatiwa campaign organization Foot Soldiers Independent Council, LACO FSIC, in Okoko Southwest local government area of Ondo State. In a Sunday statement by its State Information Director, Kayode Fasua, LACO FSIC said Excel was killed in his Supri home on Saturday. He described the late campaign coordinator as resourceful, adding that the development was a shock to its members of All Progressives Congress APC in the council. The Lucky Aiyedatiwa campaign organization Foot Soldiers Independent Council on Sunday condemned the horrific murder of one of its ward coordinators in Okoko Southwest local government area of Ondo State, Alaba Abi Excel, with appeal to the police authorities to safeguard its members against implacable opponents. In a statement issued by the State Information Director of the organization, Kayode Fasua, the late Excel was a resourceful coordinator campaigning for the election of Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa until he was gruesomely murdered as he was shot in his home on April 27th. Fasua quoted the LACO FSIC Director of Information and Online News for Akoko Southwest, Nuruddin Kasim, as stating that the incident came as a rude shock to members of the All Progressives Congress APC in the local council working for the election of the governor come November this year. To refresh our memories, no less than 4 dead in U.S. as tornadoes hit Oklahoma. Dubai ruler reveals plan for largest airport terminal. U.S. says Putin not likely behind Navalny's February death. Biden battles Trump's first-term nostalgia, and Russia gaining in eastern Ukraine, concerns over military reports. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful week ahead. Bye.